Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, as you can probably guess from the title of this video, I am filming a face tutorial. So hopefully you guys will find this video helpful. If you have any questions at the end, feel free to leave a comment and let me know, and let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to go over is how important referencing is. So here you can see I'm looking at pictures of different skulls, and I love looking at skulls when trying to draw a face because, I mean, it doesn't really get more basic than a skull. So you see here I look up many different pictures of skulls and start building my visual library of different like poses and the way the skulls work differently, and then I actually put my pencil to paper and just start doodling skulls. And I actually have like sketchbook pages filled with just different skulls, and they're not like super detailed either. I just usually do this to get like the placement of the eye sockets, the nose sockets, the jaw bones. I sketch a lot of skulls to get the placement of those down and to better further my knowledge of how facial structure really works. So now I begin to build the face. I always start with a circle, and this is just the basic shape I start every single face with, no matter which way it's facing. I start with a circle, and then I draw a line down the middle to cut the face in half. This also determines which way the face is facing. So I draw another circle beside it, and this time the face is going to be facing slightly to the right, whereas the first one is facing head on. And then I draw another circle, and that one is completely in profile, so it's facing totally to the side. So the middle line is going to be the line that determines where all the facial features are going to go, and it also determines, like I said, which way the face is facing. So then I go back to the first face. This is the one we're going to focus on first. I draw a line toward the middle to cut the face entirely in half, and then I'm going to go into this in more detail, but here's the nose. I always start with the nose because it's the most central point of the face, and I make a little cone shape for that, and then I draw the eyes on that middle line on top, and then I draw a line for the mouth on the bottom, and this is the basic shapes that we're going to build the rest of the face off of. Now I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about relativity. So like I said, I divide the face in half both ways. And this is very important because it determines where the facial features are in relative to each other. So the cone shape for the nose goes in the middle of both lines. So it's basically, if you were to fold the face in half, it would go directly down the middle of both. So I can see, or as you can see here, I draw little lines just to show you guys that it's in the middle. So I draw the eyes on top of the line that put the face in half. And then the line I'm drawing now, it's halfway through the eye, and I bring that all the way down, and that determines where the mouth ends. So as you can see, everything is in relative to each other. So the mouth ends halfway through the eyes, and the nostrils, which I draw here, also, if you bring that line up to the eyes, that is where the eyes begin. I hope that this makes a little bit of sense with the visuals because it's kind of hard to explain, but as you can see from here, everything is in relative to each other. You can break these rules, but this is the very basics of facial relativity. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about each of the facial features before we actually put them on the face. First, I'm going to talk about the nose. Like I said, I start with this cone shape, and the reason why I do this is to make me think of it as a 3D object and not as just a symbol. You always want to think of everything basically as objects and not symbols, and they exist in a 3D space, and this cone helps me with that. So as you can see, on the bottom of the cone, I made two little dots for the nostrils, and then curved a line to make the outside of the nostrils. The line on top shows where the light is going to be hitting the nose, and everything below that little curved line is going to be in shadow. So that's a very basic on how to draw a nose. I shade it just a little bit to show you guys like where the shadows would go, and yeah, that is the nose. So now I'm drawing the eye. I start with a circle, and again, you want to think of it as a 3D object. So I always start with the tear duct because that helps me determine the rest of the eye shape, and then the eyelids curve around the circle. An eye is a 3D ball basically that rests in the face. So the eyelids are going to curve around the eyeball and make this really pretty like almond shape. And then on the top I just add an eyelid. This is really stylistic, and it's not meant to be like totally realism or anything. This is just how I personally do my facial features. But yeah, I do a little line on the bottom to indicate the lower lash line, and then of course I draw the pupil and the iris as well. And of course I have to give big voluminous eyelashes because I love to draw crazy eyelashes as well. And then that's basically the basics of an eye. So now I begin the mouth. The mouth I always start with a straight line, and then the dots on each side indicate where the lips end. And then from there I go into the middle, and then I start with a small little indent, like the Cupid's bow, and then I connect that to the outer lines, and then I draw the top lip, and lip shapes can change wildly from character to character, but you just start with a top lip, connect that, and then bottom lip. I always shade the top of the first lip to indicate it's going to be in shadow, and then I don't like to fully outline the bottom lip to keep it kind of soft looking. So now we're going to put it all together. Like I said, I always start with the nose. I make the nostril shapes, and then I create the little line to indicate where the shadows go, and the nose is basically done. And then I keep in mind the relativity, that the nostrils have to connect an invisible line to where the tear ducts start, and then from there I begin my eye shapes. And also remember that eye shapes can vary wildly from character to character, and that no two characters are going to have the same eyes, and it's perfectly okay to experiment with different eye shapes and emotions and stuff like that. So in a little bit you're going to see me draw the eyebrows, and I actually have a trick, for the eyebrows, and that is I draw a line from the tear duct straight up, and then I draw an angled line from the end of the eye out, and that indicates where the eyebrows begin and end. And another thing to keep in mind is a lot of people draw the eyebrows really, really high up on the forehead, and I also had this problem myself, so just keep in mind not to draw the eyebrows too high up on the forehead, and this honestly just takes a bunch of trial and error as well. So now I am just finishing up the eyes and about to start the mouth. And with everything, honestly, everything is pretty much trial and error with art. So these are basically just tips you can use to help yourself just maybe discover some new things and maybe try something new. Anyway, so the mouth went by really quickly, but the mouths are really easy. They're not really that difficult. The main thing you want to keep in mind with the mouth is to not make anything too harsh, because then the mouth looks kind of cartoony. I drew the face shape really quickly, and this is kind of intuitive to me. It's kind of hard to explain, but the face shape is something that you have to really just experiment with and keep drawing until you get it right. I always start with the chin and then connect the chin to the sides of the face, and the sides of the face are determined by the circle. And the ears went by really quickly too, but the ears basically just start kind of in the middle of the eyes and the nose, and you can play around with the placement of those as well. Next I drew the hairline, which just determines where the hair is going to go, and I'm not going to go too far into hair because that is actually going to be my next tutorial. So definitely hit that subscribe button if you want to see a hair tutorial, because that's coming up next. But yeah, I just drew in some really basic shapes for the hair, not going too crazy detailed because that's not what this video is about, but I didn't want to leave her bald also. So that is the end of the face. Yay! Now I am just really quickly showing you guys how these same principles and the same steps can be used to draw faces facing different directions. So I start with the same exact process as I did with the first face, but now everything is just angled to the right. And this also takes some referencing and practicing to see how the shapes differ when it's facing a different direction, but all the same principles still apply. So all the relativity principles apply, and the basic shapes still apply, but everything's just going to be a little bit skewed because it's facing a different direction. And like I said, this just honestly takes a lot of practicing to get right, because I know for the longest time I could draw faces facing head on, but every time I try to do them in any other like shape, they would just look wonky. Anyway, I do want to mention real quick, for the ears, whenever a face is facing somewhere that's not head on, I do like to draw a little circle in the beginning sketch to indicate where the ear is going, and you can see that really prominently when I do the profile face. And that just helps me indicate where the jaw is going to end, because if you feel on your own face, the jawbone and the ear are really close, and if I know where the ear is going, I know I have a better idea of where the facial lines are going to begin and end. So like you see that right here. I also wanted to point out that will be the first to admit that my profiles are not great. It's something I'm really trying to work on, but just keep in mind that all of the lessons, or all of the things that I talked about before, still apply no matter which way the face is facing. Alright, so my last advice for drawing a face are the differences between female faces and male faces. So if you follow my channel a lot, you know I mostly draw females, and that's just because I like drawing pretty ladies anyway. But there are some important differences between a male face and a female face that can definitely make one look more masculine or more feminine. So when drawing a female face, it's important to keep in mind that female faces are definitely rounder and smaller. So all the features are going to look bigger on the face because the face itself is smaller. So the eyes especially, I like to exaggerate and make a lot bigger on females because it really gives off an air of femininity and innocence, and I really like that in my works. Also, the lips on females, I like to really make those voluptuous and plump because that is definitely a more feminine feature. And then, like I said, the face itself, which I'm going to be drawing right now, just keep in mind is softer and rounder. Of course, these are all generalizations, and characters, like I said, can differ wildly, and you can have a really masculine looking female and a feminine looking male, but these are just the basics of masculine versus feminine faces. Anyway, continuing on, when thinking about a male face, I like to think everything is strong and angled, so I like to make the nose farther down on the face to make the face more elongated. I also like to make the nose wider, and then the eyes are going to be smaller because the face is bigger, so yeah, the eyes are going to be smaller. I also like to make them look more, not quite angry, but just more angular. And then another important distinguishing, I don't think that's a word, anyway, another important thing are the eyebrows, because males tend to have stronger, bushier eyebrows than females. So that's another really good indicator of making your characters look more masculine. And then in talking about the lips I tend to make just thinner and not as plump. And then as far as the face shape goes, like I said, making it more elongated and more angular. Very harsh lines and angles and very strong. And yeah, that's about it for those. Just remember, feminine, rounder and softer, and masculine, harsher and more angular. So that's the end of my face tutorial. I hope it was helpful for you guys. Like I said, this is just my personal way of doing things, and you don't have to follow every single step, but I hope that you learned something new or maybe thought of something in a new way. Anyway, I am going to be doing more tutorials. Next up is definitely hair, but if you guys have any requests for any tutorials you would like to see, definitely let me know. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have an excellent day. I will see you in my next video. Bye!